Hello everybody, I'm Miss Lisa. Welcome back to another episode of Kids Day. We are continuing our virtual travels around the world, our Art Around the World series, and today we are going to be going to the Ukraine. Let's find out where that is. Here's our map of the world, and we are over here in California. We will have to travel all the way over here. Here's Ukraine. This big light purple country here. It borders the Black Sea, a bit of the Black Sea, and Russia, and some other smaller Eastern European countries. And when we are in the Ukraine, we are going to be learning about Ukrainian Easter eggs. Maybe you're thinking, well, Easter's over. Why are we learning about Easter eggs now? And let me tell you that Easter hasn't happened yet in the Ukraine because they use a different calendar. So we use what's called the Gregorian calendar, and they use the Julian calendar. And because of the differences in those two calendars, Easter is actually on May 2nd in Ukraine. And right about now, they would be decorating Ukrainian Easter eggs. And it's really a very large, very long-lasting tradition. This has happened for hundreds of years. And the eggs are they're given out as gifts at Easter. They're given to people in your family. They're given to those that mean a lot to you that aren't in your family. They're given to, they're even left in a barn if you have animals. They're left here and there. You have a couple in your house to make sure your house is safe. So there's a lot of old thoughts that go along with the eggs. But it's something that is still used a lot today. And they make wonderful gifts, and people spend a lot of time right about now making them to give out at Easter. And here are a couple examples of Ukrainian Easter eggs. These are ones that I made when I was younger. I really enjoyed this. I loved making Ukrainian Easter eggs. This is a very traditional pattern here. And this one is a less traditional pattern. It's got some flowers in the center. But again, that traditional pattern around the sides. This is a less traditional pattern with a fish in the center. Well, that kind of fish anyways. That's not a traditional pattern. And this big egg here is not actually a chicken egg. The rest of them are chicken eggs. This one is a duck egg. Not a traditional pattern, but I love spirals, and I wanted to make something that had spirals in it. The last two are more traditional. The wheat and the sun images, those are quite traditional. So you can see there's a lot of different patterns. And one thing I want to show you today is how to make a pattern simple when it seems quite complex. Because these all seem complex, don't they? But they're not actually when you break it down. And so let's break this down a bit. And I'm not going to do the demo today. I was originally thinking about doing a Ukrainian Easter egg for you from start to finish, but that's going to take several hours, and instead we're going to do a drawing, and then we'll put some watercolor paint over it, and it will come out looking similar to a Ukrainian Easter egg because we'll use the black paint to go over all of our crayon. And you have to put that crayon down really thick. So you're going to be pressing down. When you press down on a crayon, you want to hold it close to the tip so that the pressure, if you hold it here and press down, this might happen. This is what happened to my white. It tends to break off. Okay, so you want to get close to the tip when you're pressing down hard. I'll just tell you that now in case I forget to tell you later. So if we were making Ukrainian Easter eggs. Let me show you what we would need. We would need some eggs. And these are very fresh eggs. I bought them yesterday because you want to use fresh eggs when you make your Ukrainian Easter eggs. So if I was actually doing the demo, I would have used these eggs. Now these eggs are white, and that's important too, because if you want the full range of color from white to black, you have to start with a white egg, because we're going to be using wax to mask the areas that we want to stay white. And then we will dye the egg, dry it, and then we're going to mask the areas that we want to stay yellow, etc., etc. So let me show you now what else we need. So we need white eggs, and you can use brown eggs, but it just won't have the same effect. We need special egg dyes, and these I purchased to make Ukrainian Easter eggs. And I haven't mixed them up yet, as you can see. When I'm ready and I have some time, I will mix these up with a little bit of vinegar. No, these say do not. The orange, you do not add vinegar. The other ones, you would add vinegar. And you want to make sure that you don't, these are not food grade dyes, so don't have any ideas about dyeing any eggs that you want to eat later. Now, the reason a lot of people call this writing Pysanky. Pysanky is the word for Ukrainian Easter eggs. Pysanky is a word that's derived from the Russian word for write. And we actually write the motifs on the eggs. And we have special tools. These are 3 examples of a kiska. A kiska is a little cup, it's basically a hollow tube, very fine points at one end and a cup on the other. So this tube is a cone, and this is an old style. I have 2 of them. These are what they used to use exclusively. These are, well, before that they used to just roll metal and wire it onto some kind of support like a little branch. But these are ones that I bought years ago. And what happens, you need a candle, you light the candle, and you have to use beeswax because beeswax is nice and soft and it's good for coating the eggs and going around the corners. If the beeswax wasn't soft, you might not be able to keep it adhered to the egg going around the curves of the egg. So you want to use beeswax, and you've got your kiska. And what happens is you heat this in the flame. I won't actually light my candle, but we'll pretend my candle's lit, and you heat this in the flame. You can see that the wood's a little bit charred, especially on this one. From all of those times I heated my instrument. And then it's hot. The metal's hot, so you just set it on the beeswax and it melts. And you scoop up a little bit of melted beeswax, and it's hot. The metal's hot, so the beeswax melts even more as it goes down to the point. And there's a little hole at the end, and with this, you write on the eggs. You write the wax on the eggs until you run out of wax in there, and then you heat it again. You go back into your beeswax, touch it, it starts to melt. You scoop up some beeswax. You can heat it a little bit more. And all of that melted wax is inside the cone and running towards the tip. And then you use that to write. So that's why we're calling this writing Pysanky. So you hold it like this and just draw the lines. And they come out looking black. The lines look black, which is useful because, this color on white wouldn't show up too well. But as you can see, the darker, this darker wax is the color of the melted, sort of slightly singed wax, and that's how it comes out of the kistka. Here's another one. This is a more modern style. I actually prefer using these old ones. They make beautiful lines. Now the eggs themselves, you want to write on the eggs with pencil first. And so these mechanical pencils from Costco work great. I'll just show you. So you want to do your whole pattern in pencil first, and then you start putting the wax over. So I'm just going to draw a couple lines as an example, and then I'll talk about how the wax goes on. So you really do just hold it in your hand and turn the egg as you go. Some people use egg holders. I never did that. I just turned the egg. I find it takes way too much time to reposition the egg in the egg holder when you could just sort of brace your fingers on the egg and it stays pretty stable. Now this is a raw egg, remember. If you drop it, there's a great chance that you could break it. Okay, so I've divided this egg into 4 equal quarters. And from here, if I was doing a pattern like this one here, I would be thinking about making a band. So I'll just start out with the lower part. It's always nice when you go around your egg and you find that your lines join up. There we go. Some people measure these lines, but it's much more fun if you just kind of eyeball it. You don't want to get too stressed out about it. Okay, so there's sort of the basic template that I would use. And then maybe I would divide this rectangle in half and maybe this rectangle in half. And these 2 in half and these 2 in half. Okay, so we started out with no pattern and now we've got a simple pattern consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares, and basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 triangles. And what I've done is just taken the surface of the egg and started breaking it into smaller pieces. And this is how you make patterns. You just take something big, and you can start breaking each section into smaller sections. For example, maybe I would now take this triangle and divide it into different triangles by going halfway along this line and joining it up here and joining it up there. Now I've got 2 triangles in a diamond shape, and I could just carry on with that motif. Now I've got 2 triangles in a diamond shape. Two triangles in a diamond shape. 2 triangles in a diamond shape. Okay, so it's very easy to just keep breaking these into smaller pieces, and you end up with a really cool looking pattern. So I could do the same thing down here, making 2 triangles in a diamond shape, but I'm just going to concentrate up here for a minute so you can see how this works. So maybe then I would take each triangle and put a circle in it. So I would cover these, and maybe that's all I wanted white. And then I would put this egg in the yellow dye. I would dye it for maybe 5 minutes and then take it out and pat it dry. And then I would cover everything I wanted to keep yellow. So maybe I want these circles to be yellow. We cover up those with wax. And we go on and on. We dye the egg in the different color, pat it dry, and then cover the bits of the egg that you want to remain in that color. Now the very last thing you do is put it in the black dye. And when it comes out of the black dye, it's not too attractive because you've got all of this sort of dark brown, sort of blackish wax on it, and the rest of the part that doesn't have wax on it is black. So it's not too attractive. But then you take the wax off and it's beautiful. One way, the traditional way of taking the wax off, is to just hold it near the flame. Go back and forth like this. This is how I've done all my other eggs here. And as the wax starts to melt, you take a paper towel or a cloth and just wipe the part off that's melted, and you move around the egg near the flame and wipe off those parts that melt. Now, I did see a report on the internet that said you could actually just bake them in the oven for 5 minutes, like at 175 degrees, and that the wax will get nice and soft and you can just wipe it off. I have never tried putting them in the oven. Some people use hair dryers, but I just like the candle. It's very relaxing, and that's how I've always done it. Okay, so having said all that, you're probably wondering what I'm going to be doing in this project if I'm not going to be doing an egg. So let's see what I've got for you. We're going to be doing something similar, but we're going to be using watercolor and crayon. And it's very similar actually, because crayons have wax in them, just like the wax that we're putting on our real eggs. We're going to be putting crayon wax on our paper eggs. Now we know that wax is going to keep the watercolor from sticking to the egg, our egg drawing, because we've used this crayon resist method before. It's a very useful method for creating vibrant colors coming through black, especially. Very good for that, which is basically what Ukrainian Easter eggs are. Vibrant colors coming through black. So let's think about drawing some egg shapes. Do you have a piece of watercolor paper? If you do, if you want to try 4 different eggs, and I've got one done, and I've started a second one. I have space for 2 more, and I think I'll just finish this one, but I'll show you how to draw the egg here and here. So we're just going to take this paper and we're going to divide it into quarters. We're going to do that by folding it lengthwise, matching up the corners, and then opening it up and folding it widthwise and matching up the corners. And folding paper is a very easy way to get your paper divided without having to measure and draw lines. So now I've got 4 equal rectangles. I could fit 4 eggs in those, 1 in each rectangle. So let's think about the shape of an egg first. Eggs are not usually round, they're closer to oval. So I usually start with a circle first, and then extend that circle with make it sort of an oval, but slightly pointed at the end. and I know this doesn't show up very well. I'm just going to draw it lightly first because most of you know I don't like erasers. I'm just going to draw it lightly first, and then I'll draw it a little bit darker so you can see the shape. Okay, so that's the shape I came up with. That's a fairly good egg shape. So circle first, and then turn it slightly into an oval, but it's not a pointed. This end is pretty rounded, so just slightly diagonal line here instead of a curve. Slightly. I mean, it is a curve. Okay, let's do it again down here. So we start out with a circle, which I know you won't be able to see very well. And then we're going to take the sides up. So on the side of the circle, on either side, we're going to make a line that comes in slightly. It's not a rounded oval all the way. It's slightly narrower on one end. That's what I'm trying to say. It's an oval that's slightly narrower, more narrow at one end. Okay, so there's 2 more eggs. Now I have 4 eggs on this paper, and I've got these Crayola water-soluble pens, and I'm just going to outline my egg in this black pen because I know you'll be able to see it better. And I don't mind doing this because we're going to be filling up this egg with black paint anyway. So this will just make kind of a crisp outer edge for our eggs. Okay, now let's think about some designs. Like I said before, the easiest thing to do is to think about dividing it into some pieces and then dividing those pieces into smaller pieces. And so one way we can divide our space is to add some horizontal lines. And we can also do vertical line. And this will be like the one I started drawing on the egg, where there's a vertical line, and then there's one on each side and one on the back. And then we could do something like divide this in half and divide these in smaller pieces. And this one maybe we can use, I love this wavy line. If this is too complicated, just do a zigzag or something. Let's make a wavy line. And this one here, I'm going to make it very simple. What if we did something like looking at this distance here and going halfway along it, looking at this distance and going halfway along it from the top and the bottom. Okay, this distance and going halfway along and this distance and going halfway along. What if we just did something like this? And what if we did something more to this one? Maybe we did some diagonal lines here. And some diagonal lines here. And maybe some that go the other direction here. And some that go the other direction here. Okay, this is a very simple one, but it will still be very beautiful. So I'm going to leave this one just as it is because they don't have to be complicated. The designs don't have to be complicated. This one is a little bit more complicated because it has the wavy line around it. Let's see what else we can do with it. How about we make the center and go out from there. And I'll keep this one simple too. We'll just do like that. Now this one is rather complicated because I started it earlier. Let me show you how I broke it down. I started with the center, marked the center, and then I made a band on the top and a band on the bottom. When I say a band, I mean something like this that has a design in it. So a band on the top and a band near the bottom. And then I used that wavy line again that I love so much. You can actually see it on this egg here. You can see that blue wavy line. Okay, so we've broken down this big space into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, pretty much. And now we can go ahead and let's do a center line. And let's break this down even further. And then we broke this down into smaller sections. And then I broke this down into smaller sections. So you see how this works? You just go smaller and smaller, more and more patterns. And then I love spirals, so I put a spiral here. And I wanted to make another spiral here. And then I went to a flower pattern here. And a flower pattern here. And then, again, we could do some diagonal lines. Diagonal lines are always good. Trying to make them two different directions. Okay. I could get even more fancy and make some little dots here and there. Maybe something like that. Let's just hold it there. Now what we want to do is color in some of these shapes. And I'm not going to do all of them because I just want to give you the general idea. Maybe I'm going to color like this. When you remember, we're going to be doing resist. So we're going to be painting over these with black paints. to give us the look of a Ukrainian Easter egg. So when you put the color down, you'll want to press hard to simulate putting this egg into black dye. I'm going to be using black watercolor paints. I'm picking up quite a lot. I want it to be nice and dark. And then at this point, you can just take a little bit of paper towel or tissue and blot off the extra black paint. You might want to let it dry just a tiny bit first. But there you go. An Easter egg designed by you. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed Pysanky, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Goodbye.